Monday with more adventures on the road here at the Speakeasy in Sanford, North Carolina. I'm sitting here with the proprietor, Jimmie Bullis, the
How's
legendary Jimmy, Fast Jimmy, the national treasure. But anyway, I'm having a ball here. This is like pool paradise for me because it's like stepping back in time. I told you the last podcast we did what a great environment it is, and it's just getting better. We got players coming around from different areas just to see what's going on, and that's really cool. So today we're going to talk about some more of the legendary players that played here and around North Carolina that Jimmy and I both saw and both played a little bit too. So the first one that people don't realize how well this guy played. I mean, the players like Buddy Hall and Mike Sigel, who we've all heard a lot about, Earl Strickland, they feared this man a little bit. I will assure you they would say that. And his name was Jerry Brock. Jimmy, you know Jerry pretty well. He lived here for a number of years,
right? Sure did. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about Jerry, and I'll share one of my stories about Jerry.
Well, Jerry was an exceptional pool player. I mean, he when you seen him at the table, he looked like you were literally he looked like you were looking at a photograph.
Yeah.
Because nothing moved. I mean, it looked like a statue at the table.
Stoic.
Yeah.
That's what we
unbelievable. I mean, nothing moved on it. He was a little difficult to get warmed up to, but after you got warmed up to him a little bit, he loosened up a little bit. Had a kind of a dry sense of humor. Everything was the needle was a little more toward the serious side than the clowning side.
Oh, yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely.
He was a monster though. A champion, a real champion. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, he came in second in the very first two U.S. Opens ever held. I think that was in 75 and 76, if I'm correct.
Probably at the original Q Master.
Yep.
He also won a big tournament in Memphis. You know, he lived in Memphis for a while, and that's where I first ran into him. Did you get to see him play much here?
Oh, yeah. He played right much here.
And, back then he may have played more rotation, 9-ball. But, he ended up being a really good one-pocket player, really good one-pocket player. Did you see him play mostly 9-ball?
In the beginning, yeah. And on the tail end, it was it kind of slowed down a little bit. He still played rotation, but he I think if he had a choice, he would rather play one pocket.
Yeah, definitely later in life. I didn't know him that well then, but wouldn't it have been cool to see him and Louis Roberts play?
Oh, wow. Man, that would have been a sight.
Mr. Flamboyant against Mr. Stoic. That's the best way to describe Jerry, was stoic.
He was like a granite statue at the table.
Yeah, and he, I like those guys that he played a little higher above the cue. The players today are getting it right on their chin, and you got to understand, they're like I was. They started out when they were real, young, so they couldn't reach the table very well. So they had to put the cue up there, and as they grew older, they kept that position. When I started playing when I was 7 years old, the owner of the pool room, Orrin Clayton, it was Clayton's Pool Room in Green City, Missouri. He had to stand on these wooden Pepsi crates, so I never had to have the cue, and I'm really glad because I can't play like that. The visual part, I think is something you have to be used to. You made a comment about that too.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can't have my chin dragging on it either.
Yeah.
I'm liable not to be able to hit the cue ball trying to do that.
I've written about, the perception on pool shots is really important. And I try to make the perception as close as I can with every angled shot. And I've always noticed that as I get closer to the balls, I raise up higher so I can see, especially when they're real close. I want to be able to see the cloth between the balls because personally I can judge the angle better. And as the balls get farther away, I do get lower. I just don't get down clear to the cue. But Jerry was like that. He was probably at least a foot or a little bit more, his chin above the cue.
At least.
What was the best match you saw him play? I mean, did he play Harold at all here? Or? Who would even play him?
I never seen him and Harold play. Although both of them were here at the same time, they just never barked at each other. I
Yeah.
guess is the best way to put it. We had a big tournament here. One of the great Southern billiard tours. Shannon Dalton's tournament.
Yeah.
It was probably 08, 09, something like that. And Jerry was in it. Come down to the finals, and it was him and Scott Lewis. Got it. Lived over here around Albemarle at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke of Albemarle last week.
Yeah.
We had to sit down.
Sharkies.
Yeah, exactly. And Jerry, bless his heart, and Scott could really play. I mean, there ain't no I reckon about it. I mean, he could get on. He could get on with the program. And Jerry, believe it or not, he just run right through him, just like he pretty much wasn't even there.
Yeah. Yeah, he was on the championship level. We were talking about Wade Crane a little bit last week, and he went by Billy Johnson. And a lot of people have different opinions on how he got that name, because he used Billy Johnson for about 20 years, and then he finally changed it. I think when he was playing big tournaments, I think he made the change. But he called me into where he lived, and it was northern Georgia. Where was that? It's where that carpet man is. That'll come to me in a minute. But I went to his apartment, and I could tell he wanted to tell me this story. And, coincidentally or ironically, he passed away not too long after that. It was a few months. It was on Christmas Eve in outside Knoxville, Tennessee, I believe. And he went off the road. We still don't know if he maybe had a heart attack or whatever it was, but, which was tragic. A lot of people really love Billy. And but he told me that he was living in Chicago, and he worked at this business, and there was a lady there that he had a crush on. Well, she had a boyfriend that was kind of a mob guy, like a real live mob guy, and he knew that. So he never, of course, made any moves on her or anything. But one night they were at a bowling alley, and they were on like a little corporate party. At the end of the night, she needed a ride home. Well, Billy or Wade at that time, he offered to give her a ride. So they go out in the car, and Billy or Wade, I'll get it right, because at this time he was Wade. He hadn't changed yet. So, he was like a man's man, one of the most powerful presences that I've ever been around. And I'll tell the story about when he broke for me. He broke, and I played against the best bar table player in the world, David Matlock, but I'm going to save that for another time. But he sat down, and she got in the car, and and he just couldn't he couldn't help it. He said, I don't want to be like those guys that has a thing for a girl and just keeps it to himself. I'm just going to tell you something that I've been feeling for a long time. He said, I think you're an amazing woman, and I just got a thing for you, and there's nothing I can do about it. And she looked at him and she said, I feel the same way. So they clicked. So now he's got a predicament, because he knows if this guy catches him, he'll kill him, right? Or, do something horrible, maybe even worse, So they decided to leave town, and they're going to go on the road. And he said he could make a living playing pool. And back then you could. So as they were driving out of Chicago, he was trying to think. He knew he had to change his name or the guy would find him. So his brother was named Billy, and he'd used his fake ID, and he had, I think, a copy of it, to get by. And he looked up and he saw a billboard that said Howard Johnson's. And he told her, he said, that's it. Billy Johnson. That's my name. And he kept that name for 20 years. So it was kind of touching, because, who would ever thought there's like a love story, behind that. And Wade is another one that you had a story about Wade when What was it, playing one pocket?
Oh,
Weren't you
wow.
playing a one pocket game?
Yeah, that rascal. We'd have this one pocket tournament in front of the Great Southern Billiard Tour, Shannon's tournament.
Yeah.
Same deal we were just speaking of. That started on Saturday about 12, but we'd always had that one pocket tournament on the Friday night before. It was like a race, the best out of 3 or something like that. I can't remember if it was the best out of 3 or a race to 3, but anyway, it was fairly short. This guy from Toledo, Ohio was here. His name was Frank Bischoff. He lived down here in Southern Pines, worked at a little old golf course, and he liked to play golf, and I guess he could play. I don't know. I never seen him hit a ball, but anyway, him and I are playing. I'm sitting in these chairs over here, and Billy's kind of got his arms propped up in between the two chairs, and I think I needed 2 balls, and there's 3 balls, like super close to my hole, and this guy's trying to move them. Can't quite reach them. The cue ball's way out there in the middle of the table. Finally, he gets the rake out. He's gonna try to move all 3 of them balls in one shot.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make enough sense just to move the lower one or clip one and get below all of them. Nothing simple. We gotta, Billy's right here, so we got to try to show off a little bit. He jacks back and he shoots this ball. He miscues. The cue ball goes down in between 2 of those balls and comes right back up between 2 of those balls. Never hits a ball.
Where he started from.
Just about, really. And when that guy miscued, I mean, his head turned just about as red as any 3 ball you've ever seen. I mean, it looked like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah.
Billy's over here beside him. He starts smacking me on the arm like this. And what the hell is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
He said, right now is a perfect time to snap him for 200. And there was a guy sitting beside me. I thought he was going to throw up laughing.
Man.
It was priceless.
He might have popped like a cherry or something.
Man, he went to pounding on my arm, and he's a big old heavy-handed, like you just said. He's a man's man kind of guy.
Billy had wrists just about the size of my leg, and when he broke the balls, it would startle people in the back of the room. I mean, it sounded like a cannon.
Like a gun went off.
Yeah, and they called him they described his break like a cannon. And it was Boom Boom. That's what they called him. They called him Boom Boom because of that break. And like I said, he broke the balls for me one time, and it was just incredible. So, had you ever heard that story before? How he got his name?
I haven't. I've wondered it a time or two, but I never really asked anyone.
Yeah, I don't think, because when I first told that story, I was contacted by somebody that was related to him. And they wanted, they wanted to ask me some questions, and so I really got the feeling because we were pretty close, and I think he wanted that information out, and he knew if he got it to me, I'd make sure a lot of people, would hear that, because it is touching, and I'm sure. The guy that had the bounty on him probably is long gone, so I think it's okay to tell that story. So the first time that Billy weighed, we got to pick one, but Billy, I like Billy. So the first time he saw me play, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was playing these twins, and you told me a while ago, Chad and Chris were their names, and they were really good players. And maybe he'll tell you they looked identical. So like you could be playing one of them, and they could switch off, and you wouldn't even know. So I was given the best one, I guess. I think they there's a little bit of difference, but I gave him the 7, 8, 9, and I was about 18 years old, I think. And Billy told me later that he watched that match, and I ended up beating him, and I played really well, but I was hanging some balls. And Billy said that the guy that he was with there, he told him, because he told me this story when I became, I was like a champion level player. he said, man, if that kid ever stops hanging those balls, he's going to be incredibly hard to beat, So that was a great compliment. Billy, these old school guys, when they gave you a compliment, it wasn't a long drawn out compliment, but just saying, like I said last week, he always told me that Luther Laster could give me the 8. And that time that he told me that nobody could give me the 8 one night, including Luther Laster, I mean, that was touching. So you got anything
it's
else?
awesome
Yeah.
to get a compliment like that
Yeah.
from somebody that you've looked up to, whether you know them very well or not.
Yeah, yeah, that means more to me than getting my cover on, or my face on the cover of a magazine or something. I mean, as far as personally. So, anything else about Billy that comes to mind? Or we got plenty of them, but
yeah, there's a crowd of them. One of I think I met Billy. I may have said this last week. I think I met Billy in about 85, 86. It was during that time period where he set that 1,000-point hacky stat.
Perfect game in the finals of a tournament.
Of a major tournament.
Yeah, major tournament.
It was there shortly after that. And we've mentioned Harold Dollar several times. And Harold was, I don't know if I told you this or not, that was Harold's idol.
Yeah.
As an up-and-coming pool player, he thought the sun rose and set in Billy.
Yeah.
And then when Billy shows up at the pool room, I mean, it was just like Santa Claus showed up. I mean, he won't just ringing the bell and wearing the suit. It was really Santa Claus to Harold.
Yeah.
So it was incredible. And
he had a pool room in Asheville, didn't he?
For a short while, I think so. But we all wound up over in Charlotte one time, and there was a huge pool room over there. The name of it was Mother's.
Right.
I can't remember the fella. Him and his wife ran it. I can't recall his name right off the top of my head, but they had like a little tournament room in the back, 6 or 8 tables, set of bleachers, and Billy and I'm like sitting here, and Billy's sitting right where you are, and Harold's sitting over on the other side of Billy. We're all sitting there, jaw jacking, laughing, watching a match or two, telling jokes, just cutting up, just being knuckleheads. And this guy comes up, sits down over on the other side of Harold. Harold's sitting there. He ain't paying no attention. He's just, he's glued listening to Billy. And Billy pops him on the arm and says, man, ask that guy to play. Ask that guy to play. Ask that guy to play. And Harold just, it didn't take much to jar Harold. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, God, let me ask this guy to play. So he turns real quick, asks that guy, he says, hey, man, you want to play some? And that guy turns, his whole arm is gone. I mean, they just not a nub, nothing. I mean, it's completely gone. But what Harold didn't know was Billy knew this guy.
Yeah.
So it was all set up.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it, and Harold didn't know nothing about it. But the guy with one arm and Billy did. They knew all about it. I wish you could have seen Harold. We laughed.
Did he say, I'll play you some one-handed jacked up?
4 days we laughed at that. Man, you talk about
he was a prankster, man. Dry sense of humor. He'd never crack a smile, man. He'd say some of the funniest stuff, and I mean, he wouldn't even crack a smile. It was amazing. I met him in Mother's, and he gave me the break. I think I talked about that. But a lot of the best friends that I've made, we started out, with some confrontation, and I enjoy confrontation. I think that's why I was able to go in these pool rooms by myself. Sometimes I was the wrong color, to be in there, and it never bothered me as a kid. I'd go in there, just act like I owned the place, and beat them out of their money and leave. And I swear it was just a bluff. And they said, man, somebody's going to be watching out for this kid. Nobody would have the audacity to come in and beat us out of our money by themselves. But Billy was one of them. And he gave me that break, and we ended up playing for a few hours, and he ended up quitting. And like I said, I really don't think I would have liked that game if we would have kept playing. So we're up there and having some drinks, and and I'm cutting up, and I was real young, 18 years old, I think. And I was telling some stuff that he didn't particularly like, because his wife was sitting there. And Linda, I think it was. He had a few wives, but anyway, I think it was Linda. And one of them was a business partner of mine, Diane. If you're watching this, how you doing, Diane? She loves Wade, and so I'm using some vulgarity, and I'm telling these. I can't remember what I was talking about, but I think I was telling some jokes and stuff that really maybe shouldn't have been
You were
said.
not on your Bible school behavior.
Yeah, I sometimes do that in public, and a lot of times just messing with people. But so anyway, I get up to go to the bar, I think it was, and he gets up and follows me, and he comes up to me and he says with this low, serious voice, he says, "If you keep talking like that in front of my wife, I'm going to put you over my knee and I'm going to spank you in front of all these people." And I was like, but see, I'm wired backwards. So, I mean, I was like, I immediately like respected the guy a lot more. It's like, wow, he had the nerve to say it. Was, to me, it was funny. I mean, not right at that instant, because I mean, I felt like somebody knocked the wind out of me, just by him saying that. And I tell you what, I do respect that man at a high level, and always have. But when he did that, it really got my attention, and I appreciated that because he was probably right. I wasn't doing it on purpose, but when a man sticks up for his wife, I respect that. Even if I'm the object of it. But I think I learned a lesson there. I swear, I probably didn't do that. I definitely didn't do it in front of him. So sometimes you learn some of the best lessons, kind of in a unusual way. The game is the teacher. So so I played those twins. You knew the twins, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They came through here one time, and it was funny. Somebody was in here, and they had just been talking about it like 4 or 5 days ago or something like that. All of a sudden, here comes these two guys in. One of them sits at one end of the bar, and the other sits at the other end of the bar, and they're like 20 feet apart. One of them's got his ball cap pulled down to his eyelids, and the other's got it up on top of his head. And both of them got a beer. I don't remember which one. They, like you just said a while ago, there's if they're 20 feet apart, they look exactly alike.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a little subtle difference that they're right beside each other, but they weren't. And I asked one of them, I think it was the second one. I got the first one a beer, never said too much. He's sitting there with his head down, and I said his beer up there, and got the other guy a beer. And I said, "Man, y'all know them twins from Rock Hill, South Carolina, or whatever?" No, we don't know no twins. I said, "Imagine that." Y'all don't know
What
no
twins?
But they, I don't know where they are now. It's Chris and Chad. I do remember that.
Didn't they play people, and they'd play for long periods of time and then switch on
Yeah,
them?
they'd say, "Look, I'm gonna run over here to the room. I'm gonna run over there, take a shower right quick. Done slept 8 hours."
Yeah. Tag team.
And then they'd come back. I mean, I don't know if they did that with girlfriends or just did that with pool players.
Man, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't it?
Especially if you could find another set of twins, some beautiful girls, then you could just, boy, I'll tell you what, you could mix it up. But yeah, that's
they
cool.
They were awesome guys. So they wound up. The last thing I heard about those two guys is they were selling equipment like generators, and drill things, and I don't know, all this Home Depot kind of tools and equipment and shit. They made a lot of money doing that. They were like chasing storms, I guess. Power goes out, everybody wants a generator.
Yeah.
So wherever the storm's at, that's where they would pop up at. So I mean, how can you not make no money doing that?
Yeah, that's what the roofers do. They follow those storms around.
Well, I mean, them guys hustle too. I mean, they want no joke. I mean, they hustle doing what they were doing. So I mean, I hope they did terrific because they deserve it.
Yeah. We've talked about that. I call it a PhD, a pool hall degree, but we've been talking about, and there's another couple examples. How many people have become very successful because of their experiences in a pool room. You always hear about the bad stuff, and yeah, it's just like with lawyers and doctors and any other profession. There's always 10% that are at least that are not. But there's so many success stories, and you've seen it in here. I don't know how many people I've met in here that's thankful to Jimmie for teaching them how to match up and really how to be a man. I mean, sometimes you don't learn that in school.
A lot of it has to do with your. I mean, you can win or lose before a ball ever gets racked.
Yeah,
You got to negotiate, and a couple of these kids around here, including my son, that pretty much grew up in the pool room. My son, he didn't have a whole lot of choice, but a couple of these others, they showed up when they were, by the time they got the driver's license.
yeah,
I'm talking about a guy 20 years ago was 16. He's like 36 now.
yeah.
A very, very dear friend. And he came to me one day and mentioned something about that. He said, man, I got to tell you thank you. I said, for what? What are you talking about? He said, for teaching all of us how to negotiate.
Yeah.
Because with his job, that's what he does all day long is negotiate.
Yeah.
And from kindergarten through graduating college, nobody never mentioned nothing about negotiating.
Yeah. It's helped me a ton. I mean, I started out in business really young, and my mother urged me to get in the snow cone business. And we used to freeze. We were primitive to start with. We freezed in those plastic milk jugs.
Mm-hmm.
We'd fill them up with water and freeze them, and then we would cut the plastic and chop that ice up, put it in the machine, and grind it. And we'd fill up these coolers, and I would take them to a lot of times to farm sales. She would clerk the farm sales where farmers were selling everything, and a lot of people didn't bring any water. So I had a captive audience, and I would sell like $200 or $300 worth of these snow cones, and I only had 3 cents, and I was selling them for 50 cents. So I had like a 6% cost. And that was like printing money for me. By the time I was 16 and old enough to buy a car, I had 21,000 in the bank. And if you put that in today's money, I would think that'd be 150,000 or something probably. Because I bought a brand new car, and I didn't even know you could negotiate them down. Hopefully my mother did that a little bit. I think I just gave him the sticker price. But surely the guy didn't do that to me. But we knew him, so I'll hope he at least gave me a couple hundred off, because I bought it was a Ford Tempo diesel. It got over 60 miles a gallon. I could put $12 in this thing, fill it up, and it would go like over 600 miles. Is that unreal? I drove that thing. It finally broke down on me on a road trip. I was going across Illinois somewhere. And I think the timing belt went out on me. And I had about 180,000 miles, and I'm still young. I mean, I put a ton of, I've driven as much as a lot of truck drivers, I think, through my life, especially during periods of time. And so I left that car there, and I got to thinking about what it was going to cost to fix it and everything. And I sent them, they sent me a letter or something about picking it up, and I just told them to keep it. So I just bought another car because I got to thinking, with that gas mileage or diesel mileage, I'd saved enough to buy that car. I mean, it had paid for itself a couple times. I'd love to be able to do that right now. I guess all of you would too. Put $12 in, go 600 miles.
You squeezed every drop out of that one.
Yeah, so that was awesome. But the the negotiation stuff, the snow cones, and then the pool experiences on the road really educated me. I remember I opened a big nightclub in Dallas, and I needed to get a loan. I got a small business loan, and it was for $1 million. And those are tough to get for the restaurant, especially bar business. So, they said the only thing more risky for them was a movie. If you want to make a movie, that's the riskiest thing they said that they would loan money on. So, but I remember, and what I did always was I hired people that were, specialists in that type of stuff. I see that's another thing I learned is, man, you need to hang around champions at what they do. And I know champion electricians and plumbers. And in this case, this guy, that's what he did. He got loans for people. We got to be friends. And he really enjoyed some of the road stories. I mean, that's one thing I've had as an advantage, and what has steered me into what I'm about to do with the TV is capture that history, that hustler history. And we were sitting at this table, and we're with it's my friend and me and two other bankers, and they're about to pull the trigger on giving me. They had to give me this bridge financing first. They gave me like 750,000, and then the SBA gave them the rest. And we got the other $250,000. But they're sitting there, and they're looking at me, and they're like, "We don't know why we're doing this. Everything is telling us not to do it." But they said, "I guess it really is just what you've done in pool. We just have confidence in you that if you did that as well as it's documented that you did, that you're going to be able to run this club." And so, it was a funny feeling. I actually, how I think I secured it, I wrote them a letter, and I had this other friend that was like an expert in that area, and we put together a letter that was, I wish I still had it. And I mean, it was real, man. He hit all these trigger points with them, and I ended up getting the loan, and that club ended up it was a private club called Carson's Palace. We ended up having 630,000 individual members.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I tell people, it's been in the bar business. We did 1 hour. We did 18,000 in 1 hour. And that's with the cover charge. We had a line wrapped around the building. We had a VIP entrance where some nights it'd get up. We'd start at like 50. Sometimes it'd get to $100 to get in the club. And people would pay it because there was a line around the building. They'd pull I mean, we had Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and these guys would get out, come up and pay $100 like it was a quarter. And so, we had bottle service. I turned these areas that weren't producing that much money, and I elevated them. And that's another thing. If you have a pool room, if you elevate areas, areas that aren't producing much money, and you elevate those, you've probably seen this in pool rooms. You can elevate around a pool table, and it looks like the table's sunken. And the sight lines are good, and people that are up higher feel like they're more important, because then we make it VIP, and we sell them bottles for like $300 a bottle, and they just eat it up. But all this comes from my understanding of pool, and making people feel special. That's one thing that I really enjoy about Jimmie's place is, man, you make everybody feel special here. It doesn't matter if they're a street sweeper, or I don't think it matters to you at all.
And not a bit.
Like, there's a man that came in here, Jimmie, we don't have to, name him or anything, but you said he's got so much money, he couldn't possibly count it, right?
He could burn a wet elephant in the ocean. That's a lot.
I mean, I'm talking a lot. I mean, what, hundreds of thousands of acres, or
That's another thing. I don't know. I realized this at a very young age. I was probably in my late 20s, I guess. The pool room's the only place I've ever seen in my life where you can see a guy that maybe can't buy a beer, a pack of cigarettes, can't buy nothing.
Yeah.
He's sitting there having a conversation just like you and I are doing right now. And a guy that can't buy a drink or a pack of cigarettes is having a conversation with a millionaire.
Yeah.
Where else?
And that millionaire will end up staking him probably in some pool games.
Yeah, he ain't gonna pay his light bill, but he'll put him in action.
Yeah. That story you told last week about Louis Roberts going out with the homeless people and buying them all a pack of cigarettes and a bottle, and sitting down and getting hammered with them and telling us that's beautiful.
Oh, that's the truth. I mean, there's no way I could dream that up.
Yeah.
No chance of dreaming that up.
Yeah. I mean, the pool, I just love talking about these pool hall degrees, because I know there's a lot of you watching now that have your own stories about what pool has done with you or for your life. outside of just being a game, I say the game is the teacher. Man, I know several people that swear that if it wouldn't have been for pool, they wouldn't be alive today. It kept them, that maybe they were in a situation that wasn't real good, and it gave them a safe haven.
Can you imagine your life without ever pool being involved in it?
No.
I mean, now you're on a completely different level than most people that stumble into the pool room if they're 16 or 14 or
Yeah.
25. It doesn't matter. You are an exception. I mean, a complete exception. I mean, you could run out like running water when you were probably 15 years old. Most people spend a lifetime trying to run a rack.
Yeah.
But the same question. Can you imagine where your life would be if you'd never walked in a pool room?
I'll tell you what, knowing how I am, it wouldn't have been good, because I'd probably have done some things that would have put me in either on top of the
Alcatraz.
prison, either in Alcatraz or about 6 feet under or something, or something like that, because I just wasn't wired to be, a 9 to 5er. And, I think a lot of pool players share that. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, a lot of us that's had businesses, that's what we were wired for. And the late night, my mother said, even as a baby, that I would stay up late and sleep more, during the day. And I think I was just wired like that to this very day. It's hard for me to go to sleep before 4 or 5 in the morning. I've been around many people that are the opposite, where they get up at 4 or 5 in the morning. And I always told them, I said, man, we got this world covered 24/7, 365. One of us is up all the time. So,
I didn't even know there was 2 5s in the day that I stayed up all night.
how many times have you went outside and that sun's coming up?
Oh Lord, that's brutal.
I've done that so many times, and you're aching from playing like 15 straight hours, and that sunlight hits you, and of course you got to go to
It's
Denny's
just like a
or the
torch.
IHOP.
It's
Yeah,
like a torch being thrown on you.
yeah. If you're on the road playing pool, you probably spend a lot of time in a Denny's, a Waffle House, and we used to go to those cafeterias. Remember the Furs, Morrisons, and Piccadilly's, and man, back then there'd be like 3 of us, and it'd be like $22, and we'd eat a lot. I always liked, because you could see the food, and Strong Arm John was one of them that loved those cafeterias, and not only would he eat a big meal, but he'd get one to go too, because he wanted to warm it up later, which was pretty smart. So the big game that's going on, One Pocket. You love the game of One Pocket,
Oh yeah.
and I'm curious who inspired you to play. I mean, did you watch a lot of great players?
I did. When I was a kid, I watched a guy here, a hometown guy. His name was Wayne Giles. Uh, I'm sure especially some of these North Carolina people will remember that name, and a lot of people that come through North Carolina will remember that name.
Hmm.
Wayne's still around here. He hadn't played any pool, as far as I know, in several years. Uh, he was just he was a he was an awesome pool player. He was a lot smarter than most of them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And his knowledge of the game and his ability to play it and pull off what he was trying to pull off, he could really play. But what really got my interest in it was Eddie Burton, Eddie the Hat Burton. I didn't really play. I just watched a lot. Me and him run around all over the state till he passed away. But anyway, I'd had a belly full of watching it, and I it's my own fault I dogged it. I mean, I had a great guy there to show me this and show me that.
Yeah.
And, instead of trial and error and practicing for ever and ever and ever, I mean, he was very knowledgeable at it as well. Shortly thereafter, Eddie passed away is when Jerry wound up hanging around here
Okay.
for a while. and Jerry could really play as well. Man, you ever heard of a three-handed game of one pocket?
Yeah, I think we I called it captain's choice. You called it
I
something
think
different.
Jerry called it ship, captain, and crew. It's a pretty neat game. I mean, if you got one guy that's way higher speed than two lower guys, well, let's just use you for instance. Say me and your partners this time.
Hmm.
Well, you and the other guy are partners next time.
Yeah.
And then me and the other guy are partners next time.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, just say you're playing for $20 a man. So it's me and the other guy are against you.
Yeah.
You're your own partner. We have to shoot Scotch doubles.
Right.
And when me and your partners, we have to play position for each other.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty neat game. Here comes Toledo, Ohio again. There was a guy down here named Doug Dengler. He worked with that Frank that I was just telling you about earlier, that miscue between those balls.
Yeah.
They worked down there at the golf course in Southern Pines. He used to come up during the day a lot. And we'd play that game, ship, captain, and crew for, I don't know, $10, $20 a man, whatever. And man, you're talking about a blast. And everybody's thinking, well, where's the blast? Where's all the fun?
Yeah.
Where the fun came in was like with Jerry. Say I was his partner.
Yeah.
He would explain, you need to shoot the 5, get over here behind the 7.
Yeah.
Well, the other guy didn't go deaf because he's not Jerry's partner.
Yeah.
He also gets to hear that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a discussion. It's not like two statues are at the table and nobody never says anything. You know, and if he says you need to put a little bit of this on it or a little bit of that or high or low or left or right, whatever, he's explaining exactly how to get it, how he does it.
So the weaker players get to learn.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not learn?
Yeah.
You have to be an imbecile not to be able to learn if you're listening to somebody that really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, because that game requires a lot of knowledge, and it's not one of those games like in rotation. You know, kids will just pick up on it and be able to run balls, but just running balls isn't enough playing that game.
And Doug, if you're listening to this, you got 10-6 in the break.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh man, Doug's awesome. He's moved off back up to Toledo now. He told me a great story one time. I think the guy's name was Jack Hines.
Oh yeah, great player. Yeah.
Well, check this out. This has probably been, it's probably been 20, 25 years ago. Doug's just a kid. He's in the pool room. This guy comes from a couple states over. He comes all the way over there to play Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Jack gets up there, and I don't know what the bet was. Let's just say it was $500. They were going to race to 7 for $500.
Yeah.
Jack gets up there and breaks, puts a 7-pack on his ass.
Yeah.
The guy from out of state pays him.
Yeah.
Jack breaks down. Guy says, "Look, man," he said, "I'll play you some more." He said, "But you got to give me some kind of spot." Jack looked right straight at him and he said, "Man, I can't spot you nothing. I ain't never seen you hit a ball."
Man. Yeah, he was. He had some. We never got together to play. You know, I think he would say if he was here. See, I was an endurance player, and he was known for that. But among the endurance players, I think I was known to have the upper hand. But he was a great player. I don't want to take anything away from him. But it's back then. When I played, I was ready to play to the death. I mean, and I'd fantasize about that a little bit, because when you got matched up, especially North Carolina was known for it, you had to beat that man until he quit. Because if you would quit winner, that could end up kind of bad. I mean, there's people got hurt because they tried to quit winner. Like these days, they quit winner and act like they're smart. Back then, if you did that, they'd do some funny things to you, boy. I'll tell you what, they might put something in your drink, and that would make an elephant make an elephant
take a nap.
Yeah. Well, actually, take a number 2 is what it was, and then they'd lock the bathroom door. and they'd just watch the guy and laugh because that thing would hit him, and he'd run to the bathroom, and it wouldn't open.
He had his depends on. He was all
Yeah, yeah, you'd have to have some depends, but he'd run out that door, and that was just a pleasant reminder. I don't advocate that, but I'm just saying it was not the same back then. And if you knocked pool games, that was not a good thing either. So, that's what you call old school. And things have changed now to where they almost like, we always called him the house detective. There was always somebody that wanted to act like he was so smart because he knew everything and had his nose in everybody's business. And he'd start knocking some of these gamblers, and boy, they'd figure out some way to trap him, or because generally the only successful knockers and detectives were the ones that didn't gamble. Because if they gambled, they were in a bad spot because they double steer them, triple steer them.
most of the time, the guys that want to knock everything, they can't do anything.
Yeah,
They can't make a spot shot. They can't do nothing.
They can never play for money. I've never seen one that could really play for money. I mean, and I think they just couldn't stand to see people gambling. But that's what creates the economy of a pool room. And I can say from experience, the things that really had to come together for me to become a world champion player was from my losses. If somebody would have protected me and not let me go through some of those losses, I would not have developed into the player that I did. So, you can say, "Oh, I saved that guy from losing $100." I mean, it's different if he's losing, money where he can't feed his family or something. But I mean, gamblers generally, their money's more like poker chips. So I think sometimes when they act like they're saving somebody from a loss, they might be doing him a lot of damage because none of us are able to see the future. And some of the hardest times I've had is what build my character up. Jimmy, you agree with that? I mean, I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've got plenty more to talk about, but we're going to give it in small doses. Somebody that I talked to yesterday, I know you saw The Color of Money, uh, the Grady Seasons, Keith McCready.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, we had a great conversation, and he's going to come on this show. We're scheduling it right now, and
You gonna try to get him down? You gonna try to get him down?
I don't know. He's got to figure out. The first one we're going to do is probably because he's in Washington D.C., which really isn't that far from here. We're going to do a remote, so we'll see how that goes. But Keith is someone that I really looked up to. And the first time I saw Keith was in Clinton, Iowa. They had a big bar table tournament there. I mean, everybody that was anybody was there. They had, you looked over and Mike Siegel and us. They wore suits at bar table tournaments. Siegel had a suit on. I think Kim Davenport had like a red suit on. He was a flashy guy, and a good looking guy. But there was just so much, it was like being in a movie. And then I saw Keith. Now, Keith had a different air about him, and he was very. You could call it cocky, but it was confidence, and he was kind of flamboyant in his own way. And he had a shirt on that said, "The world's got the last two," and he strutted around there, and those champions just parted like the sea to let him through. And he was and he was serious about it. He'd give anybody the last two. But I mean, it was a joke, kind of. Well, not really. Like I said, but think about the nerve it takes to wear a shirt. He's got Buddy Hall, Mike Siegel, and Earl Strickland, and Steve Miserak, and Omaha John, and Dallas West ran 10 racks in a row at that tournament. And I bet you Keith would still give him the last two. And so anyway, that's exciting because Keith is the real deal. And Omaha John used to go out to L.A. and he'd jump on a bus when he was 16 and take that bus all the way to L.A. to play pool at what was it, Hard Times? There might have been an older pool room there too. That was before my time, but I think Hard Times. But that's where a lot of the big gamblers played, like Jimmy Reed, and Jimmy Reed I knew too. I got some Jimmy Reed stories. But there was just a plethora of champion road players there and gamblers. And John would go out there, and he said, Keith, because there was Sergio, there's some Mexican bar table players there that played really good on the bar table with the big cue ball, and Keith would give them the 6 ball and beat them. Because I mean, his game on that bar table with the big ball was something else. Nobody really wanted to mess with him, you know. Played about, you know, Matlock and Omaha John was just a hair under those guys, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be exciting for me to talk to Keith, and you know, I want to talk to him also about when the game changed, because all the gamblers played 2-shot shootout. You played that game a little bit.
Push out.
And push out, roll out, had different names. We called it 2-shot shootout, but one of my road partners would call it 2-shot roll around. He'd say, "You want to play some 2-shot roll around?" You know, because he was just goofy, and he's the one that would go up and say, "You and your partner want to play me and my partner some partner?" And they'd go, "What?" He'd say, he'd look at me. Yeah, he'd look at me. He'd point at me and say, "You and your partner want to play me and my partner some partners?" Partner. It worked. It worked every time. Yeah, the last one, he'd hold on to it. And he'd say, "Partner." You know, it like put them in some kind of a trance or something, and they would have to play. They're like, "Well, of course, me and my partner play you and your partner some partners." Partner.
He thought he's on the Twilight Zone or something.
Anyway,
oh God!
Till next time. This is C.J. Wiley and
Jimmie
Jimmie Bullis.
Y'all have a great evening.
All right, take care.